a former law clerk for Justice Anthony Kennedy. He is the nomination pick to replace Justice Kennedy on the U.S. Supreme Court. Kavanaugh means that this is going to be something of a drawn-out confirmation process. Even some Republicans had warned the president that because Kavanaugh has such an expansive record with 12 years on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, he had also served in the White House counsel's office. He's also on the record talking about things like Hillary Clinton and the various Clinton investigations. There's a lot there for Republicans to have to pour over, and there's a lot of ammunition perhaps for Democrats. So the question now becomes, well, can this get done perhaps by the November elections? Democrats would like to wait to see if they can pick up a few seats in the next Congress in the U.S. Senate. Let's bring in Jeannie Zaino. She's a professor of political science at i24 College, and Ken Vecchio, a political and legal strategist. And Ken, I want to start with you. Was it a wise idea, first of all, for Kavanaugh to speak longer than President Trump?
I don't think President Trump has an ego that would bother him, because people with truly big egos, they're not affronted by anybody else. So he knows that this is the gentleman who he selected to be nominated for the Supreme Court, and if he wanted to speak a little while longer, he's okay with it.
Now, Jeannie, we did have Brett Kavanaugh has been referred to as somebody who would uphold Roe versus Wade, at least the last time that he was up for a judicial position, when he was up for the U.S. Court of Appeals. Do you believe him?
No, and I think the evidence of that is if you look at his very contentious appointment to the circuit. It took 3 years that he was stalled there, and a very close vote at the time, 10-8, I think, coming out of the Judiciary Committee, and then a close vote when it finally came to the full Senate. And that was the time when Dick Durbin described him as the Forrest Gump of American politics, because, as everybody has mentioned, this is somebody who has been present in every single conservative political issue that has been around in the last 20, 30 years. Everything from Bill Clinton's impeachment to, you mentioned the comments about Hillary Clinton. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Ken Starr's investigation. So this is somebody, and Mitch McConnell was right, an awful lot to pour over. You're going to have some Republicans concerned about what he said, Democrats very, very concerned, and I think it's going to be another much more contentious debate we're going to see here.
Ken, give us the best and the worst argument. I mean, the best case for Judge Kavanaugh and the best case against him. I'm going to have you do both sides of this argument.
Look, thank God that a gentleman and judge like Judge Kavanaugh has just been nominated. He is a true constitutionalist. He believes that judges should never legislate from the bench. And he's a textualist, which is something a little bit different than a constitutionalist. It means that he follows what the letter of the law says. He looks at the writing of the law itself and not what some legislators may have said off the record about what they meant with the law. He just looks at the letter of the law. Now, this is a guy, thank God, that he probably will vote to overturn Roe versus Wade. And I agree that he probably will. But this is what the American people wanted. They elected a United States Congress, both the House and the Senate, that are Republicans. They elected Donald Trump as a Republican. They want somebody who's a constitutionalist and somebody who will overturn Roe versus Wade.
But don't they also want somebody at the Supreme Court who is above politics? And it seems like Kavanaugh has spent his entire career as something of a political animal, constantly looking for the next opportunity, whether it was Ken Starr, whether it was the Bush White House, whether it was the Florida recount. It goes on and on.
Well, I'm going to answer that in 1 second, but it's not being above politics to vote to strike down Roe versus Wade. And there's this kind of silly argument that I really want to clarify that's really important. Supreme Court justices are not sitting on the bench to never overturn precedent. When he made a statement that he would follow the letter of the law for Roe versus Wade, that was for a court of appeals judge, which is a completely different standard. He has to follow precedent. Now, as a Supreme Court judge, you overturn bad law. But to answer your question, this guy has led a storied career. He's not just somebody who's been a judge. He was a working lawyer, and a very good one. And the fact that he handled such tough and terse cases, and the fact that he's been in the limelight, and the fact that he's evolved in some issues, like what in the Ken Starr investigation, he's come across later on in the Obama era where he said that a president shouldn't be charged with a crime while sitting in office.
Right, that the only remedy now is for impeachment, that you can't charge a president with, you can't indict a sitting president. So his positions, as he would say, have evolved. Isn't he entitled to have an evolution of his views from the controversial ones of the past?
He absolutely is entitled to have an evolution resolution of his views, but I am just hopeful that the judge is as forthcoming as my friend Ken about his views about abortion, because I have a sense that he is, as we heard, been so practiced and will be during these visits with the Senate and will be during his confirmation hearings. We probably won't hear anything as open from the judge about his views about Roe and where he sits and stands on that issue. Indeed, was that a difference? In other words, his views on abortion have changed from the time he was nominated to the appellate bench to when he comes to the Supreme Court, or he sees his views very differently. I don't think we're going to hear much about that. I think what we're going to hear is that he is not going to be open about that. He is going to do what justices have been doing.
I have a fair question, a very fair question for you right on this point.
Yeah.
Every justice who was confirmed by the Senate prior to him, including liberal ones, they've all said that I'm not going to talk about how I would rule on a specific case. I need to wait for that case to come to me. So isn't it fair if he simply says, I need to wait to see what the facts are of a specific case before I make a decision?
No, I don't think so, no. And
but it was fair for Kagan and Sotomayor?
Ken, let me answer. No, I said no. I said no. I didn't think it was fair then either. This is the last time. These confirmation hearings are critical. These people serve for life. Long after I am probably gone, these people will be on there. So will their legacy. Certainly long after Trump is gone.
And because of that, can we agree that this may not get wrapped up by the election, that because there's such a lengthy record and there's so much there, and there is some nervousness on the Republican side and anger on the Democratic side, this could get stretched out past the election?
I think that the Congress, meaning the Senate here, is going to go full force like this, and they're going to get it done before the election.
What Congress are you watching? They haven't gone full force on anything recently.
I'm watching the United States Senate that is controlled by Republicans, and they want to get this done.
Del Vecchio and Jeannie Zaino, great to have you on as always. We'll have you back for the confirmation hearings and see, hey, Ken, is this very quickly? I don't think so. In any case, good to have you both. Thank you. Still to come, the United States government will not